From Danny's sudden and unexplained exit to that pivotal moment where Ben got rid of his depression beard, here's a rundown of Manifest's saddest moments. Let's start off tame. Remember Danny? The poor guy who helped Grace get back up on her feet after her husband and son just went missing out of nowhere? Yeah, that guy. He practically disappeared off the face of the earth. Except he didn't. If he did, he would have been much more important. Now imagine helping a woman gain her footing after she'd lost both her husband and her son, and then helping her raise her daughter, only to end up getting sidelined when the husband and son magically reappear after 5 years. Not only is that one confusing situation to be in, it's pretty heartbreaking too. I know Danny might have just seemed like an extra character, and getting him out of the picture meant that the two real soulmates could be together again, but that doesn't mean it wasn't sad. He just ended up exiting the scene without any real closure, except for the fact that it made sense for Grace to get back with her husband. But how can you just forget a 3-year-long relationship like that, especially with someone who practically raised your only daughter? It just didn't add up. And it felt super weird to see Olive and Grace just move past him like he never existed. I guess that's the fate of side characters. It doesn't really matter what happens to them as long as they keep the main character's stories going. Now that's sad. Even though Olive wasn't really a side character, she sure felt like one. She might not have been on the flight, but she suffered much more than the 828ers. Think I'm blowing things out of proportion? Let's see. Imagine having to deal with the sudden disappearance of your dad and twin brother, trying to adjust to the bizarre changes their disappearance caused, but then having your life turned upside down when they suddenly show up 5 years later. Now that's a lot for a teen to handle. But that's not where her problems ended. Cal was still the same age as when he left, making them just siblings and not twins. And the worst part was all the weird space between her and the 828ers. Even though her mom hadn't been on the flight, she started getting callings after she was pregnant with Eden, which meant that Olive was all alone. When you look at it like that, it makes total sense that she decided to join Adrian and his Church of Weirdos. But this is still not the worst of it. On top of everything that she had to deal with after the 828ers came back, she lost her mom too. All because of that psycho Angelina. Good riddance to her, by the way. Watching her burn into ashes was the most satisfying moment in the entire show. Sure, Ben forgave her for killing his wife, but I never did. Not after Grace welcomed her into their house and treated her like a daughter, only for her to stab her. As if that wasn't more than enough trauma for the Stone family, she even took Eden with her. I'm sorry, she abducted Eden. In her final dying moments, Grace got to see her grown-up son, and he was filled with guilt after letting Angelina in, even though Grace had kicked her out. Now, in my opinion, Olive suffered the most from this loss. Her pain didn't end at her mom's death. She had to deal with her spiraling dad, who was being a total jerk to her, and her twin brother, who still hadn't caught up with the times. She had to deal with losing him twice. And sadly, when he came back the second time, it was to kind of aid in his mom's death, which is why Olive blamed him for it. I mean, if you didn't start bawling when she broke down in front of Zeke, talking about how her life had been torn apart, you don't have a heart. Speaking of Zeke and the Stone fam, I've got another heartbreaking moment for you. Or moments, if I'm being honest. Most scenes with Michaela and Zeke had me bawling like a baby. And it didn't matter if they were happy or sad. Even the happy ones made my heart hurt. It's like when your favorite ship is always going through the worst. You never know which happy moment will be their last. So all of them just make you cry. Their chemistry was undeniable. It was so good, I had to stop myself from screaming whenever they were on screen together. I'm sure they win the award for Best Ship on Manifest. And no, I don't care if you think differently. But like every great couple, they went through the worst possible downs. He'd been doomed from the get-go. But even then, they got married a day before his death date. When he managed to survive, I thought they'd been saved. But oh well, the showrunners love to see us cry. It sucked to see them accept his death, then accept that he survived, only for him to die yet again. And it sucked even more for Michaela, since he died to save her nephew. Should she have been happy or sad? I felt like someone had ripped my heart out when she fell to the floor wailing with Zeke in her arms. Not him saying they'll see each other again. That horrible moment made it seem like Michaela might just end up with Jared after all. and I would have been so mad if that was the actual ending. But thank God Zeke was right after all. They did see each other again. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna go scream into a pillow now. But wait, I've got another unfair death that made me want to claw my eyes out. The Stone twins have really had it the worst for the entire series. How come kids have had to deal with the most trauma? Poor Cal had to go through his disappearance, then his reappearance, his disappearance again, and then finding out that he served some higher purpose. That's a lot of weight on a child's shoulders. And just when he was finally getting a little reason to be happy, it was taken away from him. Yes, I'm talking about Violet. The two of them shared the cutest little date ever. The poor kid was able to live a normal teen's life just for a day, singing songs, drinking, having a great conversation with a pretty girl that he even got to kiss. It would have been so nice if he had just managed to keep seeing her. But no, they really didn't want the kids to be happy. Poor Violet just had to be one of the victims of the serial killer. And if that wasn't horrible enough, Cal was even one of the suspects. She'd even been wearing the same jacket he sent her home in. Talk about letting a guy mourn in peace. In fact, the whole series is just filled with moments where the Stone family gets heartbroken. Remember the part where Angelina kidnapped Eden and made a run for it? Yeah, it took the fam a pretty long time to find her again. So long, in fact, that people had given up on her completely. The police had declared her dead, but Ben did not want to give up. His dad instincts really kicked in and helped him investigate all the way to Adrian's boarding house, only to get captured and tied away in the basement. But Eden followed a magical fly right into the room where her dad was tied up. And the moment they locked eyes would have had anyone in tears, even if you knew nothing about their story. Josh Dallas really killed his role on Manifest, because he couldn't even speak or move, but the pain in his eyes and the tears slowly flowing from them really showed how bittersweet the moment was for him. I'm tearing up just thinking about it. It was even worse when Angelina showed up and brainwashed Eden right in front of him. And the way he started shaking and struggling all over was so painful to watch. The painful build-up to their final reunion made the actual reunion so heartbreaking. Even though they'd made their way back to each other, it still hurt because they went through all of that pain. Also, it was a pretty anxiety-inducing scene, what with Angelina threatening to blow the whole house up and the entire family being there. But the moment that really got me reaching for the tissues was when Ben finally got rid of his depression beard. He wanted his little girl to feel at home. And that nasty beard was reminding her of the bad man her fake mommy warned her about. It meant much more than a shave. It meant they'd gotten through a battle. And I don't know about you, but that got my eyes flowing waterfalls. And that's all, my fellow manifestors. So, from that pivotal moment when Ben got rid of his depression beard to Danny's sudden unexplained exit, this was a rundown of Manifest's saddest moments.